Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 264. We're talking Super Bowl 55 picks, our preliminary, our top plays so far. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from NBC Sports Boston. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl that's in almost a year. I love all those like year plus away odds because they're always so good and so hard to predict. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun to try to peg which teams are going to do well.
Yeah, it's never too early to bet this. I know we still have free agency to go and the draft to go, and a lot's going to change. But I think you can get some good early value here. There are a couple of picks I really like in like the higher end. So I'm looking forward to discussing them with you and seeing if we get to the same picks. That'd be pretty cool. Before we begin, I should say that if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and or hit the thumbs up button. That would help out a lot. Or if you're not on YouTube, just spread the word about the website or the podcast. That'd be great. But yeah, let's just dive into this. So we're gonna go over all 32 teams, but I think we can group them by like tiers. So there are three top favorites right now. There are the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the 49ers. The Chiefs are 9-1, and then the Ravens and the 49ers are both 8-1. So are you going to be willing to bet any of these three teams?
I would maybe consider betting the 49ers probably of this group. I just think that they have the best overall roster of the three teams. But I'm probably going to hold off on it for right now just because, I want to see how Jimmy Garoppolo progresses during the offseason. I may, come back around after they do the draft and the free agency to see what kind of weapons they have surrounding him. But at the moment, I think the price on all those is not terribly high, obviously. But at this point in the season, I don't think there's enough value there. I do think the Chiefs will always have a chance to stay in the running with Patrick Mahomes. So they're going to be a good bet at any time of the year. I don't know if you get them cheaper than this too. So you could consider doing that. But I probably would steer clear of all these for now, just in case any sort of value changes a little bit. And I'm not super gung-ho on the Ravens this year. I think they still have some work to do on their roster. So I'd want to see what they do to address some of the defensive holes they have before I would bet on them.
Yeah, so I kind of made this a sort of a mistake last year, and it was kind of I don't know if it was a mistake or not. I'm curious to hear your opinion on it, but last year I had the 49ers at 40-1. I had like the Seahawks at 37-1. I had a couple of other teams, some worse than those. Like I had Denver at 95-1, which I thought was a good number, and they almost made the playoffs. But so going to the Super Bowl, I had the Niners 40-1, and like I was telling some people, I think I was talking to my dad, and he's like, "Wow, that's great." And he's like, "Do you think the Niners win the Super Bowl?" I'm like, "No, I think the Chiefs will." And he's like, "Well, did you bet the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl?" I'm like, "No, I didn't." And they were my pick at the beginning of the year. It was Chiefs over Eagles in my season preview. And so like it was odd that I didn't bet the Chiefs, but then again, they were 8-1, I think, or maybe like 10-1. I just didn't think it was good value, but I thought they were going to win. So I'm curious, like, I don't know what you think about this, but like even at 4.5-1, 9-2, whatever, I think they're the favorites. Like if to quote Kenny, if someone comes up to me with a gun and is like, you have to bet $1 on one of these teams to win the Super Bowl, I am going to bet the Chiefs. But it's 9-2. Like for $100, you win $450. It's like not obviously the odds aren't great. But if you think the Chiefs are the overwhelming favorites to win, do you think it's smart to bet them even at 9-2?
Yeah, I think if you feel that way, you should definitely go for it because you are not going to get better odds than that. I just don't see a way that unless, Patrick Mahomes starts dealing with some sort of injury in the offseason, that this number would really change, or if the team lost a ton of talent unexpectedly, that this would go anywhere below 4.5-1 odds. So if you feel that way, definitely go for it. That said, I think the AFC has been weaker the past couple of years, or maybe for a long time even. But I think it's going to be more competitive this upcoming year because there are a lot of teams that are on the rise, a lot of teams getting back quarterbacks from injuries. And just I think it's going to be competitive. And the Chiefs probably still have the best chance of making the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. But just because I think that there are some teams that could really challenge them, I personally wouldn't bet them. But if you're a big believer in the Chiefs, there's no reason not to bet them at this number.
Yeah, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait and see what happens during the season. Like if the Chiefs lose like their opener for some reason, or if they start out like 1-2, like they just have some bad luck. We'll get a better number on this. I think like we might get 8-1, and then I'll bet them. But I do want to bet them at some point because I think they're the best team. I think they have the best chance of winning the Super Bowl. I just think Patrick Mahomes is just incredible, and they're extremely well coached, and they have great weapons. And Mahomes, he might sign his contract this offseason, might be next offseason. But either way, they should have enough money to spend this offseason to improve their defense. And I think Mahomes' contract will start becoming a factor in a couple years. So this question or I guess comment, Shane says he'd sell the Niners at 8-1, Super Bowl loser curse, plus the division, Seattle and the Rams. Not only that, but I think the Cardinals will be better in 2020 as well. And I think if you compare that to the Ravens, their division just not good. Like the Bengals are, they're going to have Joe Burrow, but he's going to be a rookie. The Browns are just dysfunctional. And then we don't know what's going to happen with the Steelers. Like Roethlisberger hasn't been cleared yet. So any thoughts to Shane's comment?
I'm not a personal believer in the Rams, but I do get the point. The Seahawks obviously challenged the 49ers last year. The Rams could turn things around under Sean McVay, but I think they have a few too many bad money contracts between Jared Goff and Todd Gurley making too much. So I don't know how much they're going to be able to really realistically upgrade their team, especially since I don't think they have a first-round pick this year. So that's going to make it very difficult for them. But I just think the 49ers roster is still really good. I think they should make the playoffs. Like I said, I'm probably not going to bet any of these teams in this tier. I just happen to like the 49ers the best. And I actually disagree with you a little bit on that AFC North division. I think the Steelers should be better off because even if Ben Roethlisberger comes back and is half as good as the last time he played, he's still going to be significantly better than Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges were for the team last year. So, and they still almost made the playoffs. So I think that they're going to be tough. The Ravens are going to be tough. But I also think that the Browns maybe could challenge in division games. I'm not sold on that idea, but still.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right about the Steelers. If Roethlisberger comes back and is healthy, I think the Steelers could win the Super Bowl. But he hasn't been cleared yet, so we don't know if he's going to be 100%. We don't know if he's ever going to be like himself again. But yeah, I mean, you're right. He's going to be better than Rudolph or Duck Hodges, regardless if he plays or not. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this comment by Rick.
Yeah, so the Sin City Wicked Pisses are a team in my fantasy league. Rick is the owner of them. They are historically the worst team record-wise in history, and I don't think they've ever made the playoffs. But they're gonna try. They're gonna try. 8 years running though. They haven't made it.
Well, they're bound to make it eventually, so maybe we'll root for them this year. All right, Anthony says, let's say the Dolphins do well in free agency. We'll get to the Dolphins in a little bit. I don't think they can do enough to win the Super Bowl this year, but I expect them to be better in 2020. And then, so Murph Light brings up the Saints. So let's get to the Saints. They're in the next tier. There are three teams that are 12-1: the Saints, the Cowboys, and the Patriots. So what are your thoughts on those?
I like both the Saints and the Patriots in this one. I don't like the Cowboys at all. I think they're in cap hell a little bit, and their defense is going to be worse because they're probably going to let Byron Jones walk. And while they are probably going to franchise Dak Prescott, they're going to have to pay big money to keep Amari Cooper. And I just don't think that where they were like middle of the road team last year, they got a coach that's going to bring them to the same height, and they're losing talent on defense. I wouldn't touch them. But the Saints exiting the playoffs in the first round against the Vikings was so shocking. Just no one really saw that coming because the Saints were arguably the most complete and balanced team in the NFC last season. And offense, they had a really strong defense. They have some holes at like cornerback, and they could use another linebacker to start with Demario Davis. But I think that they should be able to get back to the playoffs. Drew Brees sounds like he's not retiring, so he'll go back to the Saints. It'll be like one final hurrah for him. Maybe he has 2 more years left, but this could be the last year. So I think they'll be motivated to win. they know they have to win now. So I like them a lot for those reasons, and just because they only really need a few players to stay competitive, and they don't have a ton of big name free agents. And then the Patriots, I just like them at 12-1 odds because if they get Tom Brady back and they add some weapons around him, say they sign Austin Hooper, get Tom Brady, and draft another receiver, you're talking about the offense being a lot better, a lot more weapons than they had just a year ago. And N'Keal Harry should be getting better, and the whole team should be getting healthier, and their defense was really good last year. They have a lot of free agents, but I think they'll be able to re-sign some of the key ones. They may have to let some of their core special teamers go. But I think Brady still comes back. I think if that offense is better, they should be equipped to at least challenge the Chiefs and the Ravens. So I like them at a 12-1 bet. You should never doubt Bill Belichick.
That's true. I think I'd hold off betting the Patriots right now until I know that Tom Brady comes back. Because I don't know if you saw the report today that came out that Jeff Darlington of ESPN, he said he'd handicap the Titans as being the favorites to land Tom Brady. And then he said the Raiders would be number 2 and then the Patriots number 3. I thought that was kind of shocking. And, I was looking at this last night when I emailed it to you. I'm like, oh, Patriots 12-1 looks pretty good. Like Tom Brady has never been this high. Like it's usually like 7-1 or 8-1. And now it's 12-1. And then I saw that report. I'm like, oh, like, can you imagine betting this? And it's like, the Patriots lost Tom Brady and now they have to have Andy Dalton start for them. It's like, all right, you might as well just throw the ticket in the trash at that point, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I did not see the Darlington report. I am on a weird schedule today. I was up till 5 a.m. last night. So I've been sleeping for parts of the day. But that is definitely shocking. And that would give me enough pause to probably wait on this. And you make a good point, too. Like, Brady doesn't come back. This number goes way down, probably. And then you can bet on Belichick at a really discounted price. Also, Tom Brady is not a system quarterback. Like, he's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. Like, yeah, he's been in the whole same system his whole life, but it's worked out pretty well. He's got 6 Super Bowl titles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Brady's, even if he is a system quarterback, he's the best system quarterback of all time. But he's the best quarterback of all time. Period. I even if he goes to Tennessee, it's like, I mean, he's played with Mike Vrabel before. It's a familiar, familiar guy to be around. And then you have John Robinson, who was with the Patriots as well. So I could see like why that would make sense. And I think Brady playing with AJ Brown might be intriguing for him because I think AJ Brown is on the cusp of really emerging next year and becoming a superstar. And then of course you have Derrick Henry in the backfield. And it's like, you get like that should make Henry a lot better too, because suddenly you can't stuff the box. Like you'll have to be worried about Brady throwing passes to Brown and Jonnu Smith, who I think could have a big year as well. So that is at least interesting. I do think Brady comes back to the Patriots despite the Darlington report. But otherwise, I agree with you on the Saints. I think the Saints are the best number here at 12-1. It's not like fantastic value, but the Saints are one of the best teams in the NFL. Breeze is coming back. They have a great roster overall. Only a few holes, and they have a first-round pick to maybe fill one of those holes. I think the Saints are my favorite picks so far. Cowboys, I agree. You can't see Mike McCarthy raising the Lombardi Trophy with Dak Prescott.
Yeah, no, there's too many potential problems with that team that have plagued them over the course of the last 5 years with Jason Garrett. So I just, I would not trust that at all.
Yeah. So Anthony asks, since Vegas started doing the odds, what team has had the highest Super Bowl between 20-1 and 100-1? I'm not sure on that answer, but I do remember back in '99, the Rams were 200-1 and they won the Super Bowl. And the sportsbooks really kind of changed how they've gone around doing that, because I know they lost a lot of money on the Rams because I thought going into that year I liked the Rams. I didn't think they'd win the Super Bowl, but I thought they had Trent Green back then, and Marshall Faulk and Isaac Bruce. Like they had a lot of offensive talent, and so a lot of people bet that, and they lost a lot of money. So now a lot of sportsbooks don't even go to 200-1. Like there are only there are only 2 that are 200-1. Back in '99, it was commonplace. You'd see like 500-1. It would be pretty common. So I'm not sure about your answer, but I do know that the Rams one is 200-1. All right, the next tier is the Eagles at 18-1, and these next three are all 20-1. The Steelers, the Packers, and the Seahawks. You mentioned the Steelers already, so what are your thoughts on them and these other three teams?
Yeah, I think the Steelers at 20-1 are a pretty good bet. Pretty much all you're betting on is Ben Roethlisberger going to come back, be healthy enough or at least good enough to win a Super Bowl. And, there are definite questions about that. We don't know how his arm's going to be, but there was video of him throwing. I know it was in like a gym and he's in shorts and he looks like a dad at a barbecue or whatever, however you want to say it. But I still think that I would trust the Steelers. I mean, Mike Tomlin has proven to be a very underrated coach the past couple of years. I mean, who else could possibly get to the playoffs or almost get to the playoffs, rather, with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges taking most of the snaps at quarterback? Like, there are a precious few coaches in the NFL who could do that. And, the Steelers aren't set to have a lot of guys hit free agency. You're looking at Javon Hargrave and Bud Dupree as the two main guys. Matt Filer, I think, is a restricted free agent too. But, if they retain him, keep their offensive line intact, get Big Ben back, I think this team is poised for a potential playoff run. So I definitely like them at 20-1 odds. I'd consider betting them. Maybe wait a little bit just to see if there's any more positive reports coming out about Roethlisberger. I think the GM said today that they think he's going to be better than he was before after his surgery, which I'm sure is false. But still they're at least confident in him. As for the other three teams, I like the Eagles a little bit at 18-1. I don't know if I would bet them right now just because they have a lot of variables that they're still trying to figure out. And just they've been so injury prone and Carson Wentz has been banged up at times. And Packers, I probably wouldn't go with either. They made the NFC Championship game last year, but they weren't particularly a good team. Maybe that's a reason to believe in them and that they will be better if they can upgrade their personnel. But I just don't see them getting there quite this year, even if they upgrade the receiving weapons that Rodgers has. I like the Seahawks a bit too at 20-1. Russell Wilson's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He can pretty much carry the team he could probably carry the team to the Super Bowl. Without a doubt, if they add some more talent around him, and if DK Metcalf makes more strides, they should be in good shape. So I like the Seahawks a little bit. I think they're my second favorite of this group to bet. And if I had to rank them, I'd go Steelers, Seahawks, Eagles, and then Packers. But the Steelers would definitely be the one that I'd want to bet.
Yeah, there are two teams here that were I guess maybe three if you want to include the Steelers, that were completely rocked by injuries last year. And I mentioned the Steelers because of Roethlisberger. If Roethlisberger were 100% last year, the Steelers definitely would have made the playoffs. I don't know if they would have won the Super Bowl. I don't think they beat the Chiefs, but I think they could at least get to the AFC Championship. And I think the same thing could happen again this year. They have a great defense. They have a great offensive line. The only question is Roethlisberger, and that's what you're really betting on at the 21, like you said. They were 20. I think they were 27-1 last year, so that was more appealing. If they were closer to 30-1, I think I would definitely bet them at that number. 20-1, I'm not really sure. I think I still might bet it there. I'm not in love with it, but I definitely do some bargain shopping. I go to Vegas every July, and usually it's crazy how varying sportsbooks are with these numbers. Remember a couple years ago or last year when I had the Chiefs at I think it was 35-1 or 40-1. There were some books in Vegas that had them at 15-1. I'm like, you guys aren't on the same page at all with this. So you can definitely find some different numbers. So we're looking at VegasInsider.com, by the way, for this. So yeah, the Steelers at 21, just okay. I think if you can find 25-1 or better, I think I'd bet it. I do agree with your point. And also Murph Life's point about the Packers. They're going to be in the mix. They have Aaron Rodgers. I assume they're going to get a better receiver. Their defense, was pretty bad at the end of the year, but I think it can get better. And then I like Aaron Jones. So they have some pieces. They're going to be in the mix. It wouldn't completely surprise me if they won the Super Bowl. But I don't think they'll get there. I think I'd be more willing to bet on Seattle and Philadelphia in this range. So these are the two teams that were rocked by injuries, really. The Eagles, I thought they were going to get to the Super Bowl last year in my season preview, but they just they just fell apart. They had so many injuries. So if they have better variance next year, they can make a deep run. And 18-1, I think, is a good number. I mean, this team won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and they're not really that different. They still have most of the pieces. So I think they're going to be in the mix. And Seattle 20-1. I mean, they were I think 37-1 last year. So this is kind of almost half, but still, I mean, they had a lot of injuries late in the year, and if they stayed healthy, I think they could have made a good run. They got to the second round of the playoffs. I think they probably beat the Packers if they're a lot healthier. I mean, they were relying on Marshawn Lynch to run the ball. Like it was pretty bad. So yeah, if they're healthier, and you can't ever count out Russell Wilson. So I'm not opposed to betting any of these four teams here. But to rank them, I would say I'd go Seattle, Eagles, and then Steelers, Packers, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And I get your point on the Steelers, because if you wait and Ben Roethlisberger, it's still kind of like him not getting cleared, then it might go down to 25 to 30-1 where you'd get the better value there. And the Eagles definitely could be better if they have fewer injuries. I mean, they have a really good roster. It's just I just don't have faith in Carson Wentz staying healthy. Like, I'm a big Wentz fan. I like his game, but like if he goes down again, and Josh McCown did not play poorly when he had to come into the game for a 41-year-old backup, or however old he is. I think he's 41. But they got to be sure they have a good backup and retain all their talent. So I'll be watching that in free agency. If they do that, then I might be more willing to bet them for sure.
Yeah, there are a lot of good quarterbacks out there. They can definitely get one of the good ones. I don't think you can count out Nate Sudfeld either. Like he's looked good in the preseason. I think he can be a good backup eventually. I don't know if he's there yet, but I don't think if they go into the year with Sudfeld as their number two, I don't think that's the worst thing. They're definitely worse backups. Anthony asks, what sports books are more reliable than Vegas casinos and New Jersey casinos? I mean, if I lived in Vegas, I would definitely I'd definitely go to the Vegas casinos. But Five Dimes and Bookmaker are my two favorite sports books. I know Jacob, you're on Bovada. I mean, I use Bovada as well. I think that's fine. But my two favorites are Bookmaker and Five Dimes.
Yeah, no, those are two of the better books. I just use Bovada because I have all my money in that one place. I don't like to spread it around because then I have to make smaller bets. But yeah, any of those three books would definitely come recommended. I think Bookmaker and Five Dimes are probably the two best, though.
Yeah, I love how you can just alter the lines and get whatever lines you want and just pay more or less juice. Like I think that's great. Roger asks, what's the prediction for biggest splash signing? I think we could do like a free agency show next week or the week after. I haven't really thought about that, but I think that's a good question. We can answer next week or the week after. There's more system quarterbacks. More faves asks, what were the 49ers odds at its highest point last year? They're 40-1 in March, I think. I don't know what they were in July, but they were definitely 40-1. I actually think they were 41 in July, but obviously they started out with a win. They won their first game, so that definitely dropped. So definitely 40-1. The next group of teams, we had the Rams at 25-1, and these next three are all 30-1. You have the Las Vegas Raiders, the Chicago Bears, and the Minnesota Vikings. Do you like any of these four teams?
I'm not really big on any of these at all. I think the Rams are bound for regression. I mentioned it earlier. They have so much money tied up in Jared Goff and Todd Gurley. So I don't know how they're going to be able to upgrade their team. So Sean McVay is going to have to do a really good job coaching, which he could. But as we've said, that division is going to be tough. And they've had trouble against some of the teams in that division already. I think the Vikings are also going to be in cap hell. So they have to get rid of some guys. They probably won't be able to re-sign Anthony Harris. They already had to let Everson Griffin go, I think, or his deal was voided or something along those lines. So I think that's just kind of the beginning of some of the exodus that we're going to see from that team this offseason. So I don't know if I would trust them. The Bears are all right. I don't mind them. You're just kind of having to bet on Mitch Trubisky there, and that doesn't exactly sound appealing to me after how he looked last year. I mean, he could make the strides, but I'm kind of losing hope that that's going to happen. Unless he comes out in the preseason or in the offseason and shows much better passing skills, I don't see the Bears being that competitive. So I guess if I had to pick a favorite of this group, it might, against all odds, be the Raiders, just because they have a shot at Tom Brady. They might be able to get him. I don't know if they will. But they also have a couple first-round picks, so they could add some serious talent there if they can get like some linebacker help like Kenneth Murray, if they get CeeDee Lamb or a cornerback or something to help their defense out. I would think the Raiders would do better, but they also play in a division with the Chiefs. So you're talking about a team that has to go for a wild card spot. So pretty much, I don't think that they're going to win a Super Bowl unless they possibly get Brady. So I might be willing to take a flyer on them, but at this price, no, I probably wouldn't bet them. And I'd say the Bears might be the safest bet of this group. But none of these really excite me.
Yeah, no, they don't. They really don't. So I don't think the Rams are winning the Super Bowl with Jared Goff with a diminished supporting cast. I don't think the Vikings are winning the Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins and the diminished supporting cast. So it comes down to the Bears and the Raiders. And I think it's interesting that both teams announced something with their quarterbacks either today or yesterday. The Bears announced that Mitchell Trubisky will be their starter in Week 1. And the Raiders announced, Mike Mayock said this morning, he said that we're open to moving on from Derek Carr. And that's something you don't hear a lot from coaches or GMs. Like, even if they want to make a change, they always say that, oh, quarterback X is my starter. Like, you always hear that. But then Mayock's openly like, yeah, we can do better than Derek Carr. And he's right. I mean, he's mediocre at best. He has a low ceiling. And the Raiders can make an upgrade. If it's not Tom Brady, I still think they can go after someone better than Derek Carr. And if they do that, they suddenly look appealing at 30-1. Now, if they go into the year with Derek Carr as their quarterback, I'd be upset about that. I'd be like, all right, my 30-1 is not cashing. But there is upside here. So if I were to bet one of these teams, it would be the Raiders. I just wish they were like 40-1 or 50-1. At 50-1, I think I'd bet them. 40-1, I'm not even sure. So I'm not going to bet them at 30-1.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you mentioned the Mike Mayock comments. I did find that interesting. And I was just thinking about this, but wouldn't it be hilarious if the Raiders somehow managed to sign like Jameis Winston? He'd be like the most electric quarterback in Las Vegas, but I feel like he'd be a perfect, symbol of that city of being like, oh my God, look, he's electric and awesome. And then at times it's just like, oh my God, what is happening? How did this all happen? All these interceptions. So that maybe they're going after that, something to match their new brand or something along those lines.
That would be pretty fitting. But then again, he had that LASIK surgery, so maybe he doesn't have those bad moments anymore. I think that's a good viable backup solution if they don't get Brady. Winston can't be worse. Like, the eye surgery won't make him worse, right? So he's either going to be the same or he's going to be better. So I'd be willing to take a shot on him for sure.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I like Jameis Winston's talent. I mean, he led the league in passing last year and has a cannon of an arm. And, who knows? Maybe that eye surgery helps, like you said. So if they can find a way to get rid of Derek Carr or bring in Jameis Winston to compete with Derek Carr, that way, if Carr's a backup, even on a massive contract for 1 year, I'd be okay with that, because then it at least means that if Winston were to get hurt, you could stay competitive. So I think that's going to be interesting to watch what they do at quarterback, because I don't know what path they would have to take to get rid of Derek Carr. And I don't know exactly who they might land at quarterback, but maybe Winston. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Morphe says Heritage is also great. Safe book. I agree. I think Heritage is probably my number 3 favorite book. All right. There are several teams that are 40-1 here. The Titans, the Chargers, the Texans, the Bills, the Buccaneers, and the Colts. So what do you see here?
Yeah, so there are 3 of this group that I really like. I like the Titans. Again, we talked about Brady being possibly the favorite to land there, according to Jeff Darlington. So if that happens and that offense gets Brady, keeps Derrick Henry, and keeps all their young weapons, and possibly keeps Jack Conklin at right tackle, but if not, finds another solution at that position, they're going to be in great shape on offense, and their defense is kind of up and coming right now. They could use some extra talent at corner. They could use some extra pass rushing off the edge, but they've got a lot of talent. They made the AFC Championship game last year as a 6th seed, and nobody saw it coming. And yeah, more faves, you nail it. The Titans are always undervalued. Like, they have a really great head coach. Mike Vrabel seems to know exactly what he's doing. And if he gets Brady, like, their value could shoot up really fast. So at 40-1, I might bet them now, just because I don't know if that gets better at all, even if they if they bring back Tannehill and Henry. I think 40-1 is still fine for that. If they get Brady, they'd be way higher. The other two teams I like, the Buccaneers, I mean, they did somewhat well last year with Winston making a ton of mistakes. I think they're the favorite to land Phillip Rivers. So their offense is set. It's a matter of, can they add enough talent to that defense to make the playoffs and stay competitive. I like the upside there. And again, Bruce Arians is a great coach, so I'd invest in that. And then I like the Colts too. They have a really strong roster outside of quarterback. If they can land a veteran or someone to at least challenge Jacoby Brissett, that should be good news for them. I think they'll be able to compete in that AFC South with the Texans and the Titans. So I like them at 40-1. I mean, they were one of the Super Bowl favorites last year before Andrew Luck surprisingly retired. So if they keep building what they have, and again, another great coach in Frank Reich, they could do well. The other teams I'm a little bit less excited about. Texans, I wouldn't bet at all because I do not trust Bill O'Brien at all. And it has to fall apart at some point. Like, it just has to. Like, you can only ride Deshaun Watson for so long before everything collapses. And I think it's time if the Titans are on the rise and the Colts play better. So we'll see what happens there. I like the Bills too, but I don't like them as much as the other 40-1 teams. I think a lot depends on how Josh Allen progresses, which I have more faith in him than some do. But, he's a big runner. So if he gets banged up, they have to have a good backup plan in place. So I'd be willing to see what they have there beside Matt Barkley before investing in them. But I like a lot of the 40-1 teams, though. There's not too many outside of the Texans that I really dislike.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you mentioned the Chargers, right? Like, I would not bet them at 40-1 at all.
I completely forgot about them, like all their fans did. Yeah, no, they're I would not bet on them at all because we don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. I imagine this is a rebuilding year for them.
Yeah, their one fan out there is pretty upset at us right now. The one thing I'll push back on a little bit, and I'll say a little bit, is the Texans at 40-1. Well, first, I love Deshaun Watson, but to your point about Bill O'Brien, he's awful. I've discussed that so many times. He just sucks as a head coach, but he is relinquishing his play calling this season. And I think that's huge because he's just a poor play caller. And he mentioned, I think it was today or yesterday, he said in a press conference that Timmy is going to call the plays. And when he said that, I thought South Park, and like Timmy's gonna do the play call. It's probably an upgrade. But they apparently have a young coach they like who's going to call the plays. So I think that is that is more favorable for the Texans if they can get some offensive line upgrades, and that's going to be tough because Bill O'Brien traded away all their picks. It's going to be difficult, but in free agency, if they can land a good tackle or also a good guard, they'll suddenly look pretty good because their one Achilles heel besides O'Brien is their offensive line. So if they can upgrade that, and Watson suddenly has a lot of time, like their offense is going to be so much better, especially with someone else calling the plays. What are your thoughts on that? If with O'Brien not calling the plays anymore.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I did not know that. That makes them much more appealing to me because then at least Bill O'Brien has a few little aspects of the game that he can't really control and find a way to screw up. So I do like the Texans more. And obviously Deshaun Watson is talented. He should win a Super Bowl. It's just a matter of, is the team around him going to be strong enough? And I think, like you said, it depends a lot on that offensive line and what they're able to do. And if they're able to get some upgrade. It's a shame that they don't have a first-round pick because this draft is loaded at offensive tackle, and they would have been able, to get one to play on the right side across from Laramie Tunsil. They wouldn't have to rely on Titus Howard, a third-round pick they picked in the first round, to play right tackle. who knows, maybe he develops, maybe they sign Jack Conklin or Brian Bulaga or something like that. But yeah, if they make a move on the offensive line in free agency and O'Brien's not calling plays, then I definitely like them a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, otherwise, I completely agree with what you said. I would say the Titans are my number one pick because they have a chance to get Tom Brady. If they get Brady, what do you think the number is? Like, I would say it's like at least 10-1. Like suddenly, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I think it would climb to maybe I'm a little bit lower. Maybe I'd say get into that 12-1 range at this point in the season. But if they bring back other people and have a really good draft, then we could talk about it going into the single digits. So, I mean, we're talking massive value at this point on them.
Yeah. So Titans at 40-1. I think I'm going to bet that. Colts at 40-1. I think I'm going to bet that as well. They have, I would say, outside of quarterback, they might have the best roster in the NFL. Their offensive line's amazing. Their defense is getting better. They can use a couple of things on defense, but they have 2 second-round picks from the Montez Sweat trade, and also they have the number 13 pick in the draft, so they can get like Javon Kinlaw and then a couple of good players in the second round. They have a good front office. Frank Reich is one of my favorite coaches. The Colts have a lot going for them. They just don't have a quarterback right now. But there are going to be a lot of options out there. Like, can you imagine if they get Phillip Rivers and he gets to play behind a good offensive line for the first time in like half a decade? Like he could have a great season. So yeah, it really depends on what they do. But at 40-1, I think they're going to be in the mix. So I would definitely bet them right now at 40-1. The Buccaneers, I like 40-1 as well. Not like crazy about it, but I think they're a decent wager. Same thing with the Bills. If Tom Brady moves on, suddenly the AFC East is wide open and the Bills can win the division. And then with that crowd in January, like it's going to be tough to beat the Bills in Buffalo. So 41 looks pretty good to me too. Yeah. So like the only team I definitely would not bet in this group is the Chargers.
Yeah, I think that's fair. They're definitely going to have a rebuilding year, especially since we know they're moving on from Phillip Rivers. Like, there's no doubt that he's not coming back. So you're talking about relying on Justin Herbert or Tyrod Taylor or whoever else they might sign as a stopgap in free agency. So I'll be interested to see who the Colts sign or who the Colts get a quarterback, because they were in the mix last year. People forget that Jacoby Brissett had them in the mix until he got hurt. So I'll be interested to see if they can get a real upgrade there and continue to build their defense.
Yeah, for sure. All right, 50-1. There are 3 teams here: the Browns, the Falcons, and the Broncos. One of these 3 teams is one of my favorite bets, period. So I'm curious to see if we agree.
Okay, so my favorite of this group is the Broncos. Again, they're another team last year that was on the cusp of being a playoff team. And again, early in the season, they had a few games that were decided by one score, and some really weird late game stuff happening to them. I think Vic Fangio really turned things around. I think Drew Lock played better as the season went on. They have a rock solid defense. I know they have some defensive linemen hitting free agency, and Chris Harris and Justin Simmons will too. But the team said they're going to franchise Simmons, so he'll stay either way. But I just think that they're poised to be better next year. I like the talent. They have a receiver with Cortland Sutton, and I think they're going to draft one in this first round, possibly Henry Ruggs. That's who I have in my mock right now. And Noah Fant really came on at the end of last year too. They need to improve their offensive line a bit. Garrett Bowles has been a problem at left tackle, but I think they'll find a way to plug their holes this offseason and just be competitive. And, we're talking about they're going to be competing with the Chiefs and the Raiders and the Chargers. But I don't think the Chargers are going to be very good. And again, if the Raiders just keep Derek Carr at quarterback, I think that the Broncos might end up with an advantage over them. And I think the Broncos' calling card will be their defense. So I like them a lot at that number of 50-1. I also have the Falcons tentatively listed here at 50-1. I picked them last year to win the Super Bowl, and that ended up being horrific. But that was kind of my preseason picks from last year. They were all pretty bad. But the Falcons have a strong offense. They just need to upgrade their offensive line a bit and invest in some edge rush on defense and fix the middle of the defense. They need some linebacker help and some secondary help as well. They're actually good at safety, but they need corner help. So they have some holes to fill. I trust Thomas Dimitroff, though. I really like him as a GM. I know It hasn't always been perfect there, but I think with the pressure up on Dan Quinn and how good they looked at the end of last season, I like them at 50-1 odds too. So I would definitely consider betting them, but I am hesitant because last year it did not go well for me.
Yeah, I was about to say. I thought you picked the Falcons, but I could see why you'd be scarred. But maybe I'll make that mistake this year. I think the Falcons are my favorite play at 50-1. Last year, I believe they were 30-1 or something like that, around there. 50-1 seems like a bargain to me, especially considering how well they finished last year. They were 6-2 at the end of the year after starting 1-7. And a big change was moving Raheem Morris over to coach the secondary. I don't know why he was coaching the offense in the first place, but he did a great job with the secondary. It just got a lot better. Yeah, they have some holes. Like they need better defensive linemen and linebackers, like you said. But I like their secondary. Matt Ryan is still going to play well. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley in his third year. And the offensive line last year, I thought they had some bad luck. Like Chris Lindstrom got injured. Caleb McGarry, he had that heart problem at the beginning of the year, so he didn't really get to practice with the team in training camp. And then you had, I think Jake Matthews and Alex Mack were injured in the first half of the year because they played horribly to start the year, and they got better as the year progressed. So if they're healthy, they're going to block very well from Matt Ryan, who has lots of weapons at his disposal. And if the defense plays better and they can get someone at number 16 in the draft to help with their defense, I think suddenly they look pretty good to me. And it's not like they're in a tough division. Like, yeah, you have the Saints, but then the Panthers, we both expect them to not do very well this year. And then you have the Buccaneers, who were kind of a wild card. And so I think the Falcons have a decent chance to make the playoffs. They were in the Super Bowl up 28-3 a few years ago, and this team is not that different from that one. So I like the Atlanta a lot. They're one of my top plays overall. And Denver 50-1 intrigues me a little bit. I would like to see what they do with their offensive line. I don't see the number dropping that much if they make upgrades to the offensive line, because most people don't pay attention to that. But I think that's very important for the Broncos, because I think that's their weak point. Bowles is a false start machine or holding machine. He's just terrible. The right tackle, Juwan James, is always injured last year. They lost Ronald Leary. His contract was voided. They want to get better at center. So if they add 2 interior linemen or a tackle and a guard, they're suddenly going to look a lot better. So I want to wait on Denver to see what happens. But Atlanta's my favorite play here. And then the Browns, I can't touch a dysfunctional team like that at all.
Yeah, I won't touch the Browns either. You make a good point on the Broncos that the number's not going to change, so I will hold off on betting on that. And you've convinced me to get back on the Falcons hype train. It does seem like a really good value, because I looked at it and was like, oh, this is even lower than last year. But I was like, I can't fall for the trap again. But I hopefully this time it's not a trap. I'm a big Chris Lindstrom guy, and I wasn't big on Caleb McGarry, but if he gets better in his second year and is able to practice in the preseason and, really acclimate himself more to the NFL, I think they'll be better off. So, that was one of their big weaknesses last year. And I think they're going to really invest in defense, hopefully this offseason.
Yeah, hopefully they upgrade their defensive line, which they've been reluctant to do that for some reason. But they're bound to do it sooner or later, right? And McGarry can't be worse than he was last year. All right, we have 3 teams that are 80-1. One of them is my top play overall. Arizona 80-1, and then you have Detroit and the Giants. So who do you like here?
I think I probably like the Giants the most of this group. If you look what they have on offense, they're in pretty solid shape, I think, at least. I think Daniel Jones is going to make big strides this upcoming year. You're talking about a receiving core featuring Golden Tate, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, and Evan Ingram. And I know Shepard and Ingram had trouble staying healthy this past couple years, but they're very good when they're on the field. So you got 4 solid receiving weapons. You got Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Really, the only hole that they have on offense is they need a right tackle and possibly someone to kick Nate Solder out of the starting lineup, depending on how you think he's playing. He kind of has had a roller coaster career from watching him in New England. Some days he'd be really great. Some days he wouldn't. I think the Giants will get a top tackle with the 4th overall pick, or if they trade down, they'll still get one while accumulating assets. I have them taking Mekhi Becton right now in my mock. easily could be Jedrick Wills, who I know you have in your mock. But they'll have a chance to land an athletic person to really help improve Jones's protection. And I know their defense has a lot of room for improvement. They need a lot of people in the secondary. They need some actual linebackers that can, hold up in coverage, and they could use some more edge rushers. But I think they have the money needed to at least make some moves there. So I like their upside. I think Dave Gettleman has done a better job than most people realize. I know he gets a lot of flack for some of the stuff that he says and some of the stuff that he does. But if you look at that offense at 80-1 odds, they could be good. And if the defense can at least be average, maybe the Giants can make the playoffs. Again, they're in a weaker division where I'm not trusting the Cowboys. The Eagles had injury issues. So I like the Giants there. I don't hate the Cardinals either. But for Detroit, I wouldn't trust them not knowing what Matthew Stafford's back is like.
Yeah, that's a problem. I'm not going to bet the Lions at all. Talk about dysfunctional teams. It's definitely the Giants. The Giants are my favorite team this year, 80-1. Like that, I feel like we see this every year where a young quarterback really leads the team deep into the playoffs, and that tends to happen because they're on such their contracts are so small compared to the other quarterbacks. So these teams can really afford to spend a lot in free agency, and the Giants should be able to do that with Daniel Jones not being paid that much. They should be able to upgrade, their secondary, which was just horrible last year. So if they can find a really good cornerback and then draft another one, suddenly their secondary is going to look much better. They have a very good defensive line with Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. As you said, they're going to take a tackle at number 4 if they trade down. There are a lot of options. Like you mentioned, Wills, and back then they could also go with Wirfs or Andrew Thomas, like Charlie has. And then if they improve their offensive line, Daniel Jones should get a lot better. And Jones at times looked great last year. I think that, people will remember some of his bad performances, like the one against the Vikings at home, like that was pretty bad. But I think overall, like when he's had Saquon Barkley healthy, like he looked pretty good. And Barkley came back after getting injured after a few weeks. And he wasn't quite himself. But I think after that, the initial timetable, which was 8 weeks, the 8-week mark reached, like he was himself again. So if Barkley can stay healthy the whole year, I think that'll really help Daniel Jones. And you mentioned some of his weapons that he gets to throw to. I just think this team has huge upside. It's not like the NFC East is that great. Like I like the Eagles a lot, but the Cowboys should be worse. The Redskins are still going to be near the bottom. So the Giants have upward mobility. I think it wouldn't surprise me at all if they go 10-6, 11-5, and really emerge as like the sleeper dark horse team that can make a run. And I think 10-6 might be one of the worst case scenarios for them. Like I could see them at 12-4, 13-3 if they make some very good moves in free agency. And considering that the money they have to spend, they should be able to do that. So I like the Giants. Also, as TJ says, their coaching hires. I like that they're going to be better off now that they don't have Pat Shurmur anymore. I like the Giants a lot. Cardinals, I think they're okay. I think they have a lot of defensive problems. And offensive line problems. I think the Giants are closer to being great than the Cardinals are.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I like the direction the Cardinals are trending in, but I think it's going to take some time playing in a tougher division.
Yeah. TJ asks, do the Cowboys and Patriots do the Brady for Dak trade? I think this is like a Madden franchise trade. Like stuff like that never happens. Like you never see starting quarterback traded for starting quarterback. Like I don't think that happens.
Yeah, I don't think that Belichick would be particularly interested in Dak Prescott because he's kind of overrated and is set to command like $40 million a year in free agency. So if he doesn't want to pay Brady what he's worth, he's absolutely not going to pay Dak Prescott that much.
That's a great point. Hot Dog City says, I like that you guys are pro Giants this year. You've been pretty tough on them the past few years. Yeah, I think they're trending in the right direction. I've been tough on them because I thought that Eli Manning was really dragging them down, and I didn't like their offensive line. Like even that one year they made the playoffs with Beckham going nuts. I thought they were overrated that year because I just didn't think Eli Manning could carry them far in the playoffs, and I questioned their offensive line. And I think that they got very lucky with some of their wins, but I think they're close to being a very good team. And yeah, if they make good moves in free agency, I think they have a chance to win the Super Bowl. So 80-1. I think that's my favorite play so far.
Yeah, and I will say this again. Dave Gettleman has not gotten enough credit for the great stuff that he's done over the course of his tenure here. I know like people focus on the fact that he traded Odell Beckham, but Beckham didn't work out in Cleveland, and he got Kevin Zeitler for basically nothing because Olivier Vernon did not really play much or play well for Cleveland. Zeitler had a big impact on that interior line. So I would absolutely say that Gettleman deserves credit. The Giants deserve credit for how they're building. And, credit Gettleman, too, for taking Daniel Jones when a lot of people were saying, like, oh, he's going to be terrible because they never watched tape of him playing at Duke and didn't see that his supporting cast was so bad that he could only look so good in certain circumstances. I get really heated when people talk about Daniel Jones that draft cycle. They were like, he's a third-round talent. I was like, no, he's probably the best quarterback in this class.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Kenny says, you said you never see starting quarterback traded for a starting quarterback. Did you forget the Chip Kelly era? I have forgotten the Chip Kelly era. That's long gone. It's never coming back. It's good riddance, Chip Kelly. All right, the 100-1s. There are four actually. The Jets, the Jaguars, the Panthers, and the Dolphins. Do any of these teams interest you?
I mean, maybe the Jets. I would at least consider them. But none of these are really that intriguing to me. I don't think any of them have a realistic shot. The Jets would be the one that I would say, like, if they can upgrade their offensive line in free agency, retain Kelvin Beachum, add a guy in the draft, and really just get Sam Darnold protection, they could be in better shape. But then they also have to address the receiving core and a lot on defense. So I think they have just too many needs to win a Super Bowl this year. But I like them better than the other teams there. The Jaguars, I don't think know what they are right now. They're like very much having an existential crisis at quarterback we paid Nick Foles all this money and he got hurt. And I think he'll be better this year. But then they also have Gardner Minshew, who the fans love, but is he really that good? So that'll be interesting to watch, but I don't think they make much noise. Panthers, I'm still projecting to have the number 1 overall pick because I don't trust Cam Newton staying healthy. But I will be rooting for Cam Newton because he's a good guy, and I lived in Charlotte for 6 months, so I kind of have to. And then Dolphins, they have way too many holes to patch this year. They'll really start their rebuild and probably be better than they were last year, but I do not think they can win a Super Bowl.
You know what's weird is that I agree that the Panthers have a good chance to be the number 1 pick and to have the number 1 pick in the 2021 draft. But I also think the Panthers have the best chance in this group to win the Super Bowl. Like I feel like they have the greatest like range of outcomes of any team because Cam Newton's such a wild card. Like Newton could get injured once again next year and then play only like 4 games, and then the Panthers win 2. They go 2-14. Like that could definitely happen. But I could also see Cam Newton staying healthy. Maybe Greg Little improves a lot. Their offensive line is able to protect him. And then you have DJ Moore really taking another step. You have Christian McCaffrey, of course. Their defense lost Luke Kuechly, which is huge. But, they have the number, 7 pick in the draft. So they can take like Derek Brown to really bolster. They can have a great defensive line. And their secondary is not that bad. I think would it surprise me if the Panthers go 1-15? No. Would it surprise me if the Panthers win the Super Bowl? No. Like it's so weird. This team could be all over the place, depending on Cam Newton's health. So I don't think I'd bet them 100-1 just because Newton always gets injured. I don't know if I could do it, but then again, they were 40. I think they were 40-1 last. No, they were 60-1 last year, and I bet them at 60-1. I thought that was a good number. So 100-1 should intrigue me. I just don't know if I can get there. Maybe if I can find a 125-1, but even then, I don't know. And the Jets, if the Jets announced tomorrow that they fired Adam Gase, I'd bet the Jets right away at 100-1. I can't bet Adam Gase.
Completely forgot Adam Gase existed. That I don't know how that happened, but you make a good point on the Panthers, and I'll give you that. My brain is also very much like Luke Kuechly is one of the best linebackers I've ever seen. So I'm losing him, I would think, would have a major impact. But who knows? Maybe they draft Isaiah Simmons 7th overall if he's on the board, and maybe he becomes like a massive all-around weapon for their defense and transforms it. So, you make a good case for the Panthers. Like you said, I don't know if I can quite get there, especially since I'm on the Panthers are going to be bad train, but they're definitely be an interesting team to watch.
Yeah, I think Atlanta's the team I want more in the NFC South. Max says, I think no, I clicked off. He says we need DFS lineups NFL can wait. I'm actually working on the projections right now. So yeah, I know that's starting soon. Bengals and Redskins are both 200-1. Will you bet them?
No, but I like the Redskins slightly better than the Bengals because I love chaos. But in reality, I think Ron Rivera is going to make a big culture change for the Redskins, and I don't think that they're going to do anything this year. They may get up to like 6-10 or something, but who knows? Maybe if Dwayne Haskins is significantly better, they could win that division. The only reason I'd consider betting them is because that division is weak, and I don't think that I would. But the Bengals, I'm not going to touch because I think Joe Burrow is going to need some time to adjust to the NFL. That's my theory, because it took him a long time to progress in college. So I think that he'll be it'll take him a little time to get into the swing of things at the NFL level, but he'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he needs time to get better. But if you're talking about dysfunctional teams, I think these two teams epitomize that. So yeah, I will not be betting those. Kenny S, if you put a gun to your head, someone forces you to bet $1, would you take the Jets or the Panthers? I would take the Panthers just because of their upside, and I can't bet Adam Gase.
I have to agree with you, and it makes me mad at myself because I don't believe in the Panthers this year. But yeah, no, Kenny, you make a good point. I should be on the Panthers more than the Jets.
Yeah. Who the Dolphins going to draft? Obviously Tua, and then a couple other. I feel like maybe DeAndre Swift, and then an offensive lineman. TJS, is Brady done? I mean, that's your account. What do you think?
So I've had this question asked to me for about 12 years. So I'm going to say no, because every time someone has declared Brady done, he has come back and done well. I know he did not play well at the end of last year, but he was banged up. His weapons were terrible and also banged up. Like Julian Edelman was playing with one arm for the most part. His shoulder was that hurt. Sanu was banged up and couldn't get separation. N'Keal Harry couldn't get separation. So if everyone's healthier this year, it's going to be better. And if he ends up with a team with better weapons or a better offensive line, it's also going to be pretty good for him. So I don't think he's done yet. I don't know when that day will come. I would have thought that day would have come 5 years ago. So I've learned not to doubt Brady. And at the very least, I think he can still be a very good game manager, even if he's not quite the same player that he once was. So we'll see what ends up happening this year. Maybe he finally starts to regress, but I don't think the regression last year was necessarily entirely his fault.
Yeah, I was on the Brady's done train several years ago, and then he won the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, and then he won the Super Bowl against Atlanta, and then he won the Super Bowl against the Rams. So I learned my lesson. I don't think Brady's done. I mean, if you look at the list of reasons why the Patriots struggled last year, Brady's near the bottom. Like he wasn't. They had so many things wrong there. So I still think he can play well. I think he can have like 2 more good years, maybe even more. Like who knows how long he can go. All right, Walt, if you win the 100K tonight, I'll give you AirPods. Sure. Sure. Yeah. Or if I win you 100 grand. Yeah, absolutely. I'll take the AirPods. All right. Last question. If the Lions end up with 2 first-round picks next year, who should they take? Or this year? I don't know. I mean, it depends. I guess they trade down. So I guess if they trade down, maybe they take Derek Brown, and then I don't know. Who do you think? Maybe a corner like CJ Henderson?
Yeah, I would think CJ Henderson would be in that like 18 to 26 range, depending on what the Dolphins would actually give them. Presuming they're trading down with the Dolphins, of course. But I think Brown would be the no-brainer for them at 5 because they'd consider him at 3, I would think, if Chase Young's off the board. And yeah, Henderson would be a good fit as a potential starting corner to replace Darius Slay.
Okay, awesome. I guess that's it for this week. So anything to plug?
Yeah, I released my first mock draft of the year much later than I usually do. I usually have one up in December, but I've been slacking a little bit in that department. It's over on rigosrag.com. The Redskins are trading down in this mock, which I know is likely not to happen. Charlie happened to break that news right when I was finishing up writing that mock. So thank you, Charlie, for breaking that at inopportune time. But no, in all seriousness, Charlie, if you're watching this, thank you for all your excellent reporting. You do a great job with that. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, follow me at Jacob Camenker. Always down to talk football. Tweet my picks during the season, and we'll give my thoughts on free agency and the draft too.
Yeah, so I'm at walterfootball.com. Even though we're banned from the combine, we're going to have lots of stories because Charlie's out there in Indianapolis. He's talking to a lot of people. Actually, like an hour before we started recording, like Charlie sent me like 4 or 5 stories that we're going to have about the combine, the NFL draft, which I'm going to post in a couple of hours. So look for that tomorrow morning. There's going to be a lot on the NFL draft tomorrow morning on the site. Updated 2020 NFL mock draft today. And I'm going to post my NBA DraftKings lineup update in like about a minute after we log off. So I will talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.